Hello, my name is Marquel Reyes, and my presentation is titled Parenting in a Postmodern Society. In our modern day and age, it is challenging to raise a child. In such a pluralistic society which is made of diverse belief systems, it is relevant to say that children of all ages need encouragement, adequate nutrition, and shelter, parental interest in their schooling, and consistency in rules and expectations. However, it is hard to determine what the right way of raising a child consists of. The experience of becoming a parent is a complex and stressful process in itself that involves a balanced interaction between the personality of the parents, the temperament of the children, and the quality of the parental partnership. There is evidence indicating that children are neither a cause nor a solution of marital problems. Children do, however, test the capacity of couples to adapt to change, and the quality of both the marital and parental relationship are potent factors in raising a child. Factors to decide when becoming a parent. Deciding about parenthood today can include considerations such as choosing a partner, postponing parenthood, having a one-child family, engaging in non-marital births, having new biological children and step-families, adopting and taking advantage of infertility treatment. Decisions about parenthood reflects people's economic circumstances and cultural beliefs together with possible external and social pressures. Decisions about parenthood also proceed from individual needs, values, and attitudes. The stressors accompanying an individual's or a couple's transition into parenthood can have serious consequences for both the couple's relationship and individuals composing the relationship. Reality of becoming a parent. As said in Belsky, Ward, and Roby, 1986, often unrecognized is the degree of real and frequently stressful adaptation when an individual as dependent as a new baby is added to the family. Couples expecting their first child typically anticipate the birth with enthusiasm and excitement. However, the actual experience of parenthood is often quite different from what couples expect prenatally. Parenting can be difficult today for several reasons, one of which is that work and parent roles often conflict. Society-wide conditions influence the parent-child relationship as well, and these factors can place emotional and financial stress gains on parents. Transitioning into parenthood. Most literature on the transition to parenthood focuses on women's experiences rather than on men's adjustment to fatherhood. However, literature on men's experiences that do exist suggests a number of differences in the way men and women experience this transition. For men as well as women, gay as well as straight, parenthood is an extremely meaningful aspect of personal identity. For couples, the transition to parenthood means less time spent relaxing together and declines in their emotional and sexual relationship. New parents feel overwhelmed often, but the motivation to overcome their stress and do their best proceeds from the stressor itself. So there is a reward, and this is the child itself, which is a source of love, joy, and satisfaction. Transitioning, men versus women. For men, cohabitation as well as marriage might be associated with better outcomes than being single for two reasons. First, being married is associated with greater social integration, and second, cohabiting fathers will have more access to the child than single fathers. For women, cohabitation and marriage might be associated with better outcomes than being single because live-in partners, as well as husbands, might offer greater social, emotional, physical, and financial support. There is evidence that suggests that women's cohabiting and marriage partners contribute modest financial resources, and they may also provide mothers social support and help with child care. Delmore Cole et al. 2000 explains, men undergo a lesser decline in marital quality than do women through the transition to parenthood, likely because men experience fewer physical and emotional demands than women during this time. Emotionally, women often experience a decline in their self-esteem, whereas men may have feelings of anxiety and neediness and a sense of loneliness. Trends in parenthood. Historically, children were economic assets, often being able to provide for the family. Gradually, the shift from an agricultural to an industrial society and the development of compulsory education transformed children from economic assets to economic liabilities. Beginning early in the 19th century, America began to witness significant changes in childbearing and fertility patterns. In the late 1950s, the total fertility rate was 3.5. 2 decades later, in 1976, we saw a dramatic drop to 1.7, marking the lowest recorded levels ever in American history. In recent years, the total fertility rate has fluctuated around 2 children. However, in 2011, as a result of the recession that began in 2007, the total fertility rate for the United States fell to under 2.0 to 1.9. And that marks the current total fertility rate, which is under the repopulation rate needed to repopulate the world, which is 2, as explained in Reedman and Stewart, Lamana, 2014. Here we have some graphs just showing the trend here from the early 1900s, the number of children per woman, all the way until the Great Recession of 2011. Here we have some graphs showing the percentage of married couples, which is 61.4%, so that leaves 38.6% here. The remaining, so there's been a big decline. And then here it is, broken down by race and ethnicity, as well as here, child per woman. Trends in parenthood. Till a few decades ago, a majority of U.S. mothers had their first child in their early 20s, which was then considered on-time parenthood. Today, Americans are postponing having children, as our postmodern society considered childbearing in one's 20s as way too early. Later age at marriage is in part due to many women's desire to complete their education and become established in a career before marrying or having children. Non-marital childbearing has risen dramatically, both as a consequence of the rise in cohabiting relationships and the cultural decline in their view on marriage. In the early 1990s, estimates from the National Survey of Family Growth show that about 39% of non-marital births were to women in cohabiting unions. Interestingly, as same-sex unions have become more visible and accepted, some lesbian and gay male couples have pursued parenthood as well. Adoption increased through much of the 20th century, reaching a peak in 1970, but the number has declined since, with between 1 and 2% of American families now adopting. As people choose to be child-free and as the infertility rates have risen, both voluntary and involuntary childlessness is higher now than a few decades ago as well. Statistics. Approximately 8% of all U.S. couples in which women of childbearing age are infertile, and 18% of married couples without children are infertile as well. About 6.7 million, or 11% of women and 6% of married women between ages 15 to 44 are infertile. About 21% of non-Hispanic white, 17% of non-Hispanic black, 16% of Asian, and 12% of Hispanic women over age 44 are childless. This figure is twice the percentage of childless women in that age group of 1976. Today, 1 out of 3 children are born to an unmarried mother. Approximately 40% of all births today are to unmarried women as well. Challenges of parenthood in the 21st century. Although it's been proven to improve marital satisfaction, it is well documented, for example, that many couples experience a decline in marital satisfaction after the birth of their first child. Indeed, the changes that accompany new parenthood are so profound that early investigators refer to this period as a crisis. However, more recent investigators have conceptualized this transition as a developmental phase or a process. Stresses of various sorts lead to parental depression and household conflict, which in turn result in less positive parenting practices and ultimately in poor child outcomes. More challenges in the 21st century. In our society, the parenting role conflicts with the working role, and employers typically place work demands first. Majority of parents worry about juggling work and family demands and wish they had more time with their children. Today's parents raise their children in a pluralistic society, sometimes characterized by conflicting values. Parents are but one of several influences on children. Among other influences are the children's schools, peers, television, movies, music, and the internet. Experts have publicized the fact that parents influence their children's health, weight, eating habits, intellectual abilities, behaviors, and self-esteem. However, over the past 50 years, parenting has become a lifestyle choice instead of a life-fulfilled obligation among many, and society-wide support has diminished for the child-raising role, once taken for granted as the central role. The advantages of parenting in the 21st century. New parents may feel overwhelmed, but the motivation to overcome their stress and do their best proceeds from the stressor itself. As mentioned before, the child is a source of love, joy, and satisfaction. Children can add a fulfilling and highly rewarding experience to people's lives. Becoming a good parent can certify one's attainment of adulthood. Mothers typically engage in more hands-on parenting than do fathers, and they take primary responsibility for the children's upbringing. However, close confining marriages have been proven to have positive effects on fathers' attitudes toward parenting. Fathers are increasingly invested in their children's daily lives as they engage in breadwinning, planning, sharing activities, and teaching their children. Couples, both heterosexual and homosexual, have begun adopting and taking advantage of fertility procedures as well. As you can see, there are many factors to consider when deciding to have a child, as the societal values of the family have changed to have so many dynamics. The idea of parenthood as a life-fulfilled social obligation has now become more of a personal choice. And although parenthood has become a choice, the majority of Americans continue to value it. As individualism continues to grow in our postmodern society, the total fertility rate continues to decline. As social factors such as same-sex marriage and child-free cohabiting relationships continue to rise, marriage and childbearing rates continue to decline as well. Nevertheless, it is relevant to say that such changing values concerning parenthood and the more available alternatives for couples, such as the desire to postpone childbearing, the availability of modern contraceptives, and legal abortion, will result in a higher proportion of Americans remaining childless or having only one child in the future. Thank you.